Hello, Rob Walker here. So this isn't a Walker Stalkers. This is another RPG vlog, and the first part of this is just going to be a quick response to Juice 734's response to my response. Sorry, that's ridiculous. You're absolutely right. 8 hours is way long to game in one setting. That's just kind of what I thought. My last gaming session ever was about 8 hours, and we set it up that way because we knew we wouldn't be gaming for a long time after. So we just kind of marathoned it, but that is a little long to hold everyone's attention. And some other people said that 2 or 3 hours per session in a group of about 4 sessions, four to eight, I think. That's great. That's actually perfect. I think that's really good. And a lot of people cited RPG conventions where it's all micro gaming. You don't have days and days and days. You might be dealing with strangers, so you have to plan 2 to 3 hours. Just for a game, pre-gen characters, and I think that's all great. And I'd like to thank everyone who commented on the RPG video. Really great comments. Everyone was really nice and respectful, and it's a great community. I appreciate all your thoughts. Thank you, and yeah, I appreciate it. So next is a topic I mentioned briefly to Juice 734 as something I might want to talk about, because I've watched tons of videos about people talking about this very thing, and I thought I'd throw my opinions in as well. My background's in theater. My background is in video and film and in writing and storytelling. Which is partially why I like role-playing as much as I do, because if you're a player, it gives you the chance most of the time to craft the character. Even a pre-gen character, you kind of get to play that character. And as a GM, you kind of get to craft the story. But the subject of many videos and what seems to be on people's minds a lot is, where does the balance lie? Is it with the GM or with the players? I have been mostly a GM whenever I've gamed. And I love to tell stories. I love to craft intricate worlds. But I've found that if your planning for the game becomes more about you and your ideas, then you're doing it wrong. Probably. Some people are not really great at improving. So planning out and learning everything there is to know about a world kind of helps them improv. So if the characters step off the beaten path, they're like, okay, I know exactly where they're going. And in that case, I guess that's good. But if you're a GM and you're over planning and it becomes more about the stories you want to tell, then I might suggest you write a short story or produce a film or a play or whatever. Because then you get total control, or as much control as you can. When you're role-playing, when you're running a role-playing game, you're beholden to your players. Your players come for an experience, and it really is about them. Now, don't get me wrong. In the last gaming session I had, there were things in there just for me. Giant robots, Jim Henson labyrinth-like magical creatures, all sorts of really weird stuff. An island that was the top of like the tippy top of the head of a golem. Yeah, all sorts of neat stuff that I have to admit was just for me. But most of that was flavor or peripheral. The stuff that was a part of the adventure itself didn't really get in the way. You know what I mean? And here's the thing. As far as players go, I've been very fortunate to play with people, run games with people whom I know very well. So the last game I played was with my wife, my sister, and my brother-in-law. Now my brother-in-law, he was playing a thief, so he wants to take everything that's not nailed down. And I know him pretty well because I know how he plays video games. If it's there, he wants to take it so he can sell it or trade it later or whatever. So, of course, in-game, he's trying to take everything that's not nailed down. My sister based her character off of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, so she wants to kick some ass, but she's also kind of sensitive. So putting her in action-based as well as social interaction scenarios works really well. I know that's something that she wants. My wife likes to dispense justice, but she's also very kind and caring. And she was playing a cleric, so that worked out really well. So I knew these people well, and I tried to craft certain scenarios toward each person. And I guess that comes back to GMing. Okay, so there's one scenario where I know my brother-in-law wants to steal all the gold he sees, but I deliberately crafted this scenario so that if he stole a single gold coin, it would have dire consequences for the rest of the group. Now, in that case, that was just broad. That wasn't even specific. That was just broad. I just thought it was kind of a fun afterthought, and I put that in there because I knew the dynamic of the people playing. Now, of course, he tries to steal something, and at that point, the ball's out of my court. I've done my job. I've laid the groundwork. Now it's up to the players. And sure enough, my wife and my sister jumped in and said, hey, don't do that. We have to deal with these people. If we steal from them, it's going to be bad for us down the road. So they were able to talk him back from doing what it is he wanted to do. That was a case where, I set up a choice. I didn't really set up obstacles. I set up a choice, and the choice was theirs. My sister and my wife, they were the inhibiting parties to what he wanted. And that kind of goes back to my theater training. If you've ever been in theater, or even just watched a movie, every scene should be two people fighting over something that they want. And each person is the obstacle to the other. And that is a game, right? You are against something, whether you're against another group of players or you're against a situation, you are always driving forward, trying to achieve something, trying to overcome, right? So your job as a GM is to set up those scenarios, and they don't have to be super intricate. They can be broad, right? And it's probably a lot better if they are. Which brings me to Alfred Hitchcock's MacGuffin. Alfred Hitchcock had a thing called a MacGuffin, which was an item that a character is after, right? You see this in Indiana Jones films. A lot. In every single Indiana Jones film. And every decision Indy makes revolves around that item. The Ark of the Covenant is an excellent example. He doesn't want the Nazis to get it. He wants to get it. What is he going to do to stop the Nazis? What are they going to do to stop him? And this goes into he uses different tactics, too, from throwing fists and shooting to trying to go behind their back and hiring Sala to find the real Well of Souls. And that should be kind of how a game works, depending on what kind of game you're playing. As you set up a scenario, you can throw in a little bit of flavor to build the world, but I kind of think that your players are going to build the world for you. That's kind of what they're there. And if you're all sitting around a table, you're there for imagination anyway, right? So your players go in expecting certain things. If I'm a player, I go into a game and I want something out of the experience, right? I want, at the very least, to be entertained. Which means that I hope that my GM has prepared, but not so much that it feels railroady. And not to be obnoxious, if we're in a sandbox situation, I occasionally might like to explore the sandbox a little bit. So if the GM is like, okay, you see a fork in the road, one road leads to nothing, it's just more road, and the other road leads to a dark and stormy castle. Which road do you take? Your GM is obviously wanting you to go to this dark and stormy castle. But what's down the road? What's down the other road? That might be frustrating to the GM if it's done insincerely by the players, if they're just trying to mess him or her around. And then they have to scramble or whatever. But sometimes I think that's good for the GM to scramble a little bit. I think it's good to improv. Improv is healthy, and I think role-playing games stimulate creativity. So in that regard, this hobby is a healthy endeavor. So it's good for the GM to be able to scramble a little bit and to think up a new scenario. I think that's a positive thing. So yeah, that's kind of my take on the dynamics of a role-playing game. To summarize, if you're a GM and it becomes more about you than it does about your players, then you're probably doing it wrong. If you're a player and you're being deliberately obnoxious, knock it off. But I think stepping out of the prep zone for both the GM and player is a good thing. Some people are better at it than others, but I think it's a good thing for the game. It takes the game in positive directions. So yeah, I'd like to know what you guys think. I know this topic has been discussed ad nauseum, but yeah, that's my 2 cents. I don't want to overplan as a GM, but I'd like to put certain set pieces in there. Mostly it's about the characters, so I try to set up certain situations and let them go. As a player, I want to be given a unique experience. And I hope that the GM has done his or her homework, but not so much that I feel like I'm acting out their own fantasy. You know what I mean? So yeah, let me know what you think. Leave comments. This is Rob Walker saying thank you for watching.